Okay, we're back. We had a quick meeting with some of our students and some of the cool ideas that you guys have come up with for the next couple of tutorials. We're going to look at them. So, first suggestion was changing the controls of moving the character from the arrow keys on the keyboard to using the more traditional keys for playing computer games, which is WAS and D. So we'll go look at that today as well. The other thing we're going to look at is creating a menu. So creating a menu. So when you actually start your game, the menu pops up first and you can click on the play button or click on options or settings or stuff like that. And then you can play your game and jump into the game. So that's something we'll look at. A couple other suggestions that we'll look at in the future as well is how can we finish the game? So when we finish the game, maybe it pops back into the menu and you can play it again, or maybe you can change the level of the game to put the difficulty level up or something like that. So being able to finish the game, maybe at the end of the level there is, something to collect, someone to rescue, something like that. Some of the suggestions from some of the other students was to add in other elements within the game, for example, a different type of enemy. So maybe an aerial threat, like a bird or something like that. But also things like being able to jump on a trampoline. So maybe a platform that launches you really high into the sky. Other suggestions like a zip line that will zip you across the map, maybe to avoid something at the bottom, and so on. So we've got heaps and heaps of suggestions, and hopefully, as we progress through these tutorials, we will try and get all of them done. Today, we're going to be looking at changing the default keys to WAS and D if that's something you want to do, and then also creating a menu. So let's jump straight into it. So this is where we left off, and this is our game. So if we play our game, this is where we should have left off, and we can collect bananas and we can go through the map, avoiding maybe losing a life or two along the way, and that's what we got. So if you want to be able to change the default controls, and if I just click on our character real quickly, just to show you, the default controls are here. So this is the behavior that's been set under the platform behavior. And you can see default controls has been checked. Now, if you don't want to use the arrow keys and you want to use WAS and D, what you need to do is do a little bit of coding for that. So let's jump into the game code and we're going to create an event. And the event is going to be a simulation. So basically what we need to do is we need to select keyboard. Now, if you don't see keyboard in these actions, it means that you haven't added it initially. So you need to go back to your level. You need to add a object and you need to look for keyboard in here. Okay, like you do add in a sprite, but we've added that before. So let's go add event, keyboard, and we're looking for when the key is pressed. So this one over here, when key is down, and we're going to click on next. It's going to ask us what key we want to detect when it's been pressed. Now we're going to do one of each. So we're going to do the W key, the A key, the S key, and the D key. So let's start with the A key. So I'm going to press A on my keyboard, hit OK, and hit done. So right now the coding is saying when the keyboard detects that A has been pressed or someone is holding the letter A down, needs to be an action for it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to assign the action to our player, and what we want to actually assign to our player is a simulation. So we want to simulate the control. And when you press A, for WASD keyboard commands, that is the key to go left. So we're going to just leave it at that. And basically what I'm going to do is just do the rest for the keyboard. Now I will just copy this line of code and just add it in a couple more times. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit these. Now how I copied it, I just selected the whole block, hit Command C or Control C on my keyboard and then hit Command V to paste. If you're not sure how to do that, just hit the add event again and do the exact same thing. But this time what we're going to do is change the letter. So instead of A being down, now we're going to do when the letter D is pressed. So when the letter D is pressed, what we want to happen is it simulate something else. We want it to simulate going right. And we've got one more to go. And this one is going to be when W is pressed. So when W is pressed, we want to simulate something, and that is going to be for jumping. Now, if I hit play on my preview button, and I try to control the character now using WASD, you'll see that it does simulate the left and right. Okay, so that's how you would do the default controls. Now, you've probably noticed that our character is no longer animating, and that is because we still have the character with the arrows on these animation sets. So if you wanted to, you would have to go back into these code that we've created earlier and just change it to the letters that you want them to correspond with. So something like this. And if I hit play now, you'll see now it's animating and jumping with WASD. Okay, so that's only if you wanted to change the default control. That is up to you. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create a menu. So to do this, we need to do one of two things. We need to create a new layout. So this was our first layout, and you can see it's basically one level. If your game was going to have 3, 4, 5 different levels, you would have 3 or 4 or 5 different layouts as well. So let's create a new layout, a blank layout. So I'm going to go to this side over here where my layouts are. And if you don't have this, if you've accidentally closed this panel or something like that, you can always get it back open by going to View, Bars, and selecting the Properties bar or the Project bar, whichever one you've closed, you can bring them back open. So the one we want is the Project bar. Okay, so I'm going to click into Layouts just over here, and I'm going to click on the Add Layout button. Now it's going to say, do you want to add an event sheet for this layout as well? So remember, an event sheet is where all your coding goes. So we can do that now or we can do that later. It's not a problem. But what I'm going to do is say, yes, add an event sheet. And that way those two things are linked up straight away. Awesome. So right now I've got my layout number 1, and I've also got event sheet number 1 here. Okay. What I want to do is I want to go to my layout 1 and I want to rename this. So over here in the properties, I'm going to call this menu. And I might also rename the event sheet. So I might right click it and just hit rename and call this menu code, just so we know. Okay, so for the menu, if I just zoom out so we can see what it looks like, it actually looks like a pretty big game world. Now, we don't need it to be this big. The menu should just be the screen size of the person playing the game. So what we want to do is over here where we change the name, we also want to change the size of our game. So we're going to get rid of the size there, and we're going to put in 1920 by 1080. And when I click out of that, you'll actually notice this is going to get smaller. There we go. Okay, now why did I pick that size? Well, that is the size of our game, okay, our entire game. And you can see that if you go to project properties. So if I click on view, you will see that the actual viewport size of our whole game is full HD, which is 1080p, that one there. Okay, so I'm here in my game. I've got my menu set. And what I need to do is actually design a really cool menu. So if I go to Bing Images real quickly, and I have a look at 2D game menus, you'll find that there are really cool designs out there. But basically what you're looking for is a couple of options, buttons, a nice little background design, and a cool name for your game. That's basically what you want to create. Now, I'm not going to give you the files for the menu. What I would like you to do is actually design your own menu. So I'm going to open up Photoshop and let's go File, New. And I'm going to select the same size of our canvas, so which is 1920 by 1080. And I'll just call this menu and hit OK on that. And I'll just grab the text tool and I'm going to just write a cool name for my game. Maybe I'll write something like Jungle Platformer Game. And let's make it bigger. Now you can design your game title wherever you like. You don't have to use Photoshop. You could use whatever you like. Maybe I'll put that on a new line. And let's pick a different font type. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, pull that up a little bit. Actually, we could add let's get a picture from the internet. So let's go to Bing Images and let's look for a 2D jungle background. And that looks actually really cool. Let's get this image. Let's copy it. Let's paste it in there and let's make it really big. And put our text on top. And let's format our text a little bit. So I'm going to right click on that layer, go to blending options, and let's just put a stroke on it so we can see it a little bit better. And maybe we'll also change the color of the text. So let's make the color more of a green. There we go, that looks okay. All right, just click a couple more just so it pops a little bit. Okay, and we've also got enough room underneath to put our menu. Okay, our buttons. So let's save this now. So let's go File, Save a Copy, and I'm going to save it on my desktop, and I'm going to call this menu background, and I'm going to save it as a PNG. Now let's go back into Construct, or you've downloaded it and you want to bring it in. We're just going to insert a new object, and the object we're going to bring in is just a sprite. So let's get that up. You could bring in a background image if you wanted to as well. And instead I'll load up an image. So let's go to the image that I created. There it is there. Let's close it. And it's really big for some reason. Let's resize this. There we go. Perfect. Now we've got our game designed in Photoshop. We can look to add in the buttons. So let's right click and hit Insert New Object, and we're going to bring in a sprite. Now this time what we're going to do is just create a darker square. So it can be any color you want. So what I'm going to do is just pull it in so it looks like a game menu. And I'll just call this button. Actually, we'll call it play button. Okay, let's create our other two buttons as well. So we're going to go insert new object, and we're going to create the exact same thing, but this time it's going to be our options button. And let's make sure it's the same size roughly. We'll put it underneath. And let's do one more. And the next button or the next sprite we're going to bring in can be maybe like a quit game button. So let's drop that in there as well. Okay, perfect. Now these three you can easily design in Photoshop as well if you really want to. Okay, so now we're going to write play, options, and quit on there. So let's right click, insert a new object, and we're looking for just text. Now you could have designed this in Photoshop as well if you want to and then bring it in, but we're just going to put some text. And now the text box, we want to make sure it covers the entire box. So just make sure it covers the entire box there. The name of your text box should be called play button text box. And let's change what it says. So double click in there and change it to play. So I'm going to write play in all capitals. And I'm also going to make it a lot bigger. So down here, we should see a lot of different options. So we've got what font do you want, what's font size, and what font color. I'm going to change all of those things. So let's go to the font style, and I'm going to change it to, let's see, maybe this handwriting one, Bradley hand. So let's hit OK on that. Let's change the font size to 30, maybe a little bit more. Let's go to 40. Yep. And we're also going to make it bold, and let's align it to the center horizontally and also vertically so that it's in the middle of our button there. Perfect. All right, so let's do two more. So let's right click, insert new object, and get two more text boxes in. And remember, the text boxes should cover the entire box, just like that. Call this one options. So this is like if you wanted to change the difficulty level of your game and stuff like that. So options button text box. You can call it whatever you like. And then down here, just change the what's written inside. So we want it to call options. We want it to be Bradley hand. And I think we had it at 40, bold, and centered. I'll just make sure that's the same. Is it 40? Is that what we had at? Yep, 40. Perfect. Okay, so let's do one more, and we'll add in a quit button. So let's bring in one more text box, and let's make that big. Let's call this the quit button, and let's scroll down, change the font type to Bradley, change the font size to 40, make it bold, and center it. And I think we might even change the color. Let's make the color. So here's the color here. Let's change it to white. I think that'll look better. So let's change all the colors to white. Yeah, I think it looks a lot better with white, but you can decide what works best for your game. Okay, now if we press the play button, what happens? We come to this screen, but there is nothing working. If we went over to our level 1 and we press the play button, it starts from there as well. What we want it to do is we want it to actually force the game to start at the menu. Now to do that, it's actually quite easy. we're going over to the project properties. So we're going to hit view. Now, if you don't see project properties, it could be because you've got something selected. So you wouldn't see project properties if you've got something selected. So just click outside, and then you'll see project properties down here on the bottom left, and click view. And what we want to do is we want to change the first layout that is on startup, right there, startup, first layout. So it's no longer going to be level 1, it's going to be the menu. So let's select that. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is actually code that these buttons are going to take us where we want them to go. So, oh, we didn't call that one quick. Let's just do that real quickly. There we go. Perfect. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our menu code. So let's open up that event sheet, menu code. And this is a blank code sheet or event sheet, and we're going to start adding in some events and some actions. Okay, we're going to add in our first event. So the first thing we're doing is adding an event. Now, when you click on the play button, what are you using? You are going to be using your mouse. Now, again, if you don't see mouse in here, that's because you probably didn't add it in. And what you need to do is go back to your menu, right click up here, go insert new object, and look for mouse. Now, because I've already added it, it doesn't come up, just like the keyboard. If you haven't added the mouse, make sure you add it in before you go and add your event. So let's go add event. I'm going to click on mouse and hit next. And what we're looking for is when we clicked on an object. So on object clicked. Okay, so there is lots of different detection points here. You know, if you click anywhere, if you click and hold the mouse wheel, things like that. What we want to do is just see if you've clicked on an object. So on object clicked. Let's go next. Now it's going to say what type of click is it? Is it a left button, middle button, or right click? It's going to be a left click. And what type of click is it? Is it a double click or single click? So just a normal click. And now it's asking what the object is. So we're going to go in there and we're going to look for our play button. And we want the text box, not the actual rectangle that we created behind it. We want the actual text box because it's in front of it. So let's hit OK and let's hit done. So we've got our first event in there, and the event is when you left click on the play button text box, something's going to happen. So let's assign our action to it. Now the action is not for any character or anything like that. It's actually a system action. And the system action is going to be a change in the layouts. So just search for layouts. And what we want to do is go to a particular layout. Okay, so let's hit next on that one. It's going to ask us which layout we want to go to. Do we want to go to the menu? Do we want to go to level 1? We want to go to level 1. And let's hit done. All right, let's see if this actually works. So let's click on the play button. And here's my game menu. And obviously I've got play options quick. Now I'm just going to click on the play button and it drops me into the game. So we're able to actually do it, which is fantastic. Really, really good stuff. Now, what we probably want to do is also code so that when we're in the game, maybe if we click on a button, it pauses the game or brings up a menu and allows us to quit back to the menu. What we can do is just code in the game code a button that you can click on just for now that will go straight back to the menu. So let's go to game code real quickly, and we've got a whole heap of stuff in that event sheet. Let's add in a new event, and this time we're going to add in a keyboard event, and we're going to detect if you've pressed a particular key. So what we're going to do, we're going to write when key code, we're going to say on when key is down, okay? So let's press that one and hit quit and done. And we're going to click on a particular key. Now this can be anything you want. You can make it, maybe the letter Q for quit. So if you want to, you can put the letter Q in there. Let's hit OK and hit done. So now we've got a keyboard event for when the keyboard letter Q is being pressed. We're going to assign an action to it, and the action is going to be a system action, and it's going to be another layout change. And we're going to say go to layout, and this time we're going to go to the menu. Now let's see if that works. So let's go from our menu. We're going to hit play. We're in our menu. I'm going to hit play. We're playing now. And here I am. Oop. Now I'm going to hit the letter Q on my keyboard, and boom, I'm back into the menu. Okay. Now, probably the better thing to do would be for you to hit the letter Q, and maybe a sub menu appears that says resume, quit. Maybe you've paused it, and maybe we'll look at doing that in one of the next tutorials. But for now, what I would like you to do is work on a menu for yourself, design it. Don't just download an image like I did. Maybe try and design one yourself in Photoshop, bring it in, and then create your menu. One of the other things that we will look at doing later on is creating options where you can set difficulty levels for your enemies. Now, the last thing we're going to do today is to create a quit button. So let's code that in as well. So let's add in a new event, and we're going to choose the mouse and hit next. And we're going to make sure that we find on object clicked, and let's hit next. The type of click is going to be left, and it's going to be single clicked, and now we're choosing the object. Now the object we want is the quit button. So let's hit OK on that. Okay, so now we have the mouse on left clicked on the quit button text. We need an action for that. Now the action is going to be to actually close your browser. Now we don't have that set up just yet. Okay, it's not in here like the keyboard and mouse. So what we need to do is just jump into our menu, and we're going to right click and insert new object. And the object we're looking for is browser. Now if you can't find it, just type it in the top left, and that's the one we want. That will allow Construct to control your browser. So let's go to the menu code, and we're going to go to add an action on this left click on the quit button, and we're going to look for browser. And basically what we're looking for is a way to actually close the browser. So let's look at window close, and let's hit next. And let's see if that works as well now. So I'm going to save this before I try this. Okay, let's go up to the play button. Now make sure that my play button still works and my Q button still quits. And now we can hit this button to quit the game. Perfect. And it's all working. So that's it for today's lesson. Next lesson, we will look at different things for within the actual game world, where we might add in a flying enemy and also a new obstacle that you'll have to either zip line over or use a trampoline to jump across. I'll see you guys then.